Welcome to Game Misconduct. I'm CT here with Dory.
Hello.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. Search for Game Ms with a Z Conduct. Okay, let's dive in to the week of games. At home, it was at home versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. That was a Lightning win, 6-3. Very nice
Yep.
win.
Yep.
Everybody gets Chick-fil-A. It's awesome. Thursday, January 12th, against the Vancouver Canucks. They almost let it slip away near the end, but the Lightning
Yeah.
win 5-4 over Vancouver.
Yeah. I don't want to say they took their foot off the gas, but
They took their foot off the
um,
gas.
yeah. I
And
hate saying that, but I don't know how else I mean, that's the only way you can describe it.
right. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention uh Andre Vasilevsky was very irate near the end of the Columbus game, smashing his stick. And it seemed to me it was over a couple dumb turnovers right in front of him. Um, so
which,
which
which
I
is
mean
good.
they only had 3 goals to their 6. So people were
Mhm.
like, I don't understand. Well, it's, come on, guys. Like play in front of me.
Yeah. I do you remember back when Vasu was baby, just a kitten,
Yes.
and he wouldn't get fired up about that. He kind of just let them do it and then was like, well, I'll just put everything on me and I think he's matured as a goalie.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't do everything. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm very good, but I can't do everything. You can't do that in front of me.
Right.
So I have no problem when he gets
Fired up.
mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very even keeled guy, he seems.
Yeah.
But he was hot at the end of that game on the 10th versus Columbus. But yes, they took their foot off the gas a bit near the end of the Vancouver game. Both teams in the basement of their division and their conference. So, uh, but any given night, any team can win.
Yeah.
Then they hop on planes and fly to St. Louis, where actually Pat Maroon got to see a hockey game of his sons, and some of his teammates went with him, which was really cool. Um, but the Lightning take that W 4-2 in St. Louis.
Yeah. And I
Um,
said last week when we talked about this is one of those road trips you kind of get a little you get I don't want to say nervous about, but you always have to go, "Ooh, I hope none of these are going to be any kind of trap game because of the distance, right? The distance
right.
traveled is really wild in this one because St. Louis, yeah, it's the Midwest. It's literally right there in the middle, and then they're going all the way over. So I was kind of like, "Ooh, I don't know." I mean, St. Louis is a decent team.
Yeah.
Um, so I was kind of a little, I'll say, leery
Okay.
of this, but I thought that they played really well in St. Louis as a whole.
And then it looks like they had a day off in Seattle because I think it was Sergachev and Nemesnikov checking out maybe the aquarium on their socials, getting to see the city a little bit. I think they were in like kind of something like the Orlando Eye, it looked like. Um,
Yeah,
but Tampa Bay beating a hot lately Seattle 4-1
very hot.
in
Yeah,
Seattle. So
yeah.
taking the
I thought
W
that was a
there.
huge win. Because again, the travel's weird. Coming off that off day, it's a travel day, so they get some, like you were pointing out, they get time on their hands. You start kind of hoping that they, stick with it. But this is one of the most professional group of men in any sport, right?
Yeah.
This Lightning team. So they come out and snap an 8-game home win streak for Seattle. So,
Wah,
uh,
wah.
anytime you do something like that, because you go into it and you look and you go, "Ooh, Seattle's really playing well at home,"
Yes.
and then the Lightning can do that. I think it's January. I think it's a confidence booster. Not that they were a bad team
No.
by by any stretch. Lightning are still a top 10 team in the league. But it's a big win because of how well Seattle has played.
Yes. And now here's where it gets a little hinky for me looking ahead. So tomorrow night, they play at Vancouver at 10 p.m. And then they play at Edmonton at 9 p.m. the next evening. So that's a lot. I mean, I know these are peak performance athletes, but it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Vancouver, they just saw. Um, so we'll see how they play there. And then Edmonton with Connor McJesus. He's always fun to watch. So it's kind of
Yes,
crapshoot being the second off a back to back. We'll just have to wait and see. Wondering maybe we'll see Brian Elliott maybe in the Vancouver game, maybe.
maybe.
Um,
Yeah,
and
I
then
would. I would think Vancouver, but that's just a guess.
yeah. And then wrapping up this road trip on Saturday in Calgary at 3 p.m. for a matinee. So
Yeah,
lots going on.
lots
Uh,
going on,
three
and I
games
don't
in
know.
4 days. It's a lot.
It is, especially when you're away from home and you're kind of jet setting around the Pacific well, I guess I don't know if they call it the Pacific Northwest of Canada, but the western portion of Canada.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you saw this, but I got an alert late last week, and it said, "Are you ready?
Yeah.
Connor McDavid, he's it. This really is the next Gretzky this time." And I thought, you know,
Wait,
they've been
why
saying
is
this
that
for
saying
30
that
years.
now? Yeah, why is that news?
I think what happened was somebody said, "Hey, you know what we haven't done recently? We haven't done a next Gretzky
Story.
article."
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, because I know you remember, in the 90s, it was like all anybody could talk about. The 90s and early 2000s. It was like Eric Lindros is the next Wayne Gretzky, and Sid Crosby's the next. It was one after another. And
Maybe there isn't a
finally,
next Gretzky. I mean, there's only one Gretzky. There's only one Lemieux. Like, give the kid his own identity. Connor McJesus, I mean, he's fantastic. I don't know that he's
he's
been on the
fantastic,
best
yeah.
teams best team in his career.
No, but I mean, he does have Leon Draisaitl, and Leon Draisaitl's really good at hockey. So
Really
I'm
good at
really
hockey.
good at hockey. Um, so, but I just felt like, here we go again. Here we go
Yeah,
again with the next Gretzky. So I don't know. I don't know if you got that alert. I don't even remember where it came from.
I
Obviously, a major
didn't.
publication.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh no,
Must
here
have been a
we
slow
go
day.
again.
Must have been a
It
slow
had to
day.
have been a slow day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
They
anyways,
they
so
went through
that's
the Rolodex and said
yeah.
1999,
Yeah.
2000. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd be happy with, I think they can bring out 2 wins out of the 3 games. Easy.
Which one are you concerned about?
Edmonton,
Or you don't
just
know?
because it's the second of
Edmonton.
the back to back and it's Connor
Fair.
McJesus.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah. And then the following week they're back at home, Minnesota, Boston. Boston, who's been playing really well. Minnesota, who you've mentioned before,
Oh,
some reason just gives us fits. And then rounding it out, which FYI guys, drink slowly during the day and don't forget to eat, because there is a home game versus LA on the evening of Gasparilla at 7 o'clock. So
isn't there always a home game
there have been a
at
couple years where there
Gasparilla?
hasn't been, but I do remember
Mm,
many a years jumping off a float that we had to work on and walking to a hockey game. I mean, the All-Star weekend was during Gasparilla weekend. I remember
that's
that.
right.
But
Yeah.
just take your time, guys. Drink lots of water in between. I know it
Yeah.
starts early, but if you got to go to a game that night, uh,
Yeah.
don't
On a
don't be
hot team too. They're
don't
they're
yeah, don't be
yeah,
annoying if you go to the game.
yeah. But there are some real hot teams, especially the two games coming up at home. With Boston, who obviously is the best team in the NHL, followed by the Kings, who are really having a great year.
Yeah, they've
So
turned it around in the last year. So,
they really did.
anything else you want to touch on before I move on to my wild card that I'm going to throw at you?
No,
I wonder
I've
if you
been
can guess what
waiting.
it is. Can you make a
I
guess?
I think I know.
Give me
You want me
a
to say it?
yes.
Does it have to do? I mean, I kind of hinted earlier. I said the name Eric Lindros.
Yeah, I think you're on the right path. There was a story out a couple days ago, our buddy, John Tortorella, Stanley Cup winning coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning back in 2004, I believe it was. I always forget what year it was. He is not a fan of the iPads, and he banned them from the bench. So I'm sure you guys have noticed a lot of times players get off the ice. Maybe there's a play that went wrong. Maybe there's a play that went well, and they immediately come off the ice and they grab the iPad. I think Kucherov is one who does it a lot. Braden Point. A lot of the guys do it, especially if maybe there's a call that they're not sure about. They'll immediately jump off the ice, pick up the iPad, and watch. And John Tortorella apparently doesn't give a quote, a flying S-ball about banning the iPads from the bench.
What an interesting choice of vocabulary to use there.
Yeah. So Tortorella said it's a fine line, but we're not going to have them. We have a TV, on the bench basically that they can take out because it's built right into the rink at my feet. So if we or someone really needs to look at something, we have the ability to do that. He says, if we're going to keep on growing here, just get ready for the next shift. With the iPad, you're pointing out everything during the game. It's almost like you have to, as a coach, because we saw it and we overcoach. He says, I think we get in the way sometimes and we're clouding the head with what just happened instead of let's try to take care of business on the next shift. I agree with him sometimes on that point. Yeah, it makes sense. Like maybe don't look at it until the end of the period or in between periods. You kind of have to be paying attention to what's going on the ice before your next shift. I don't know.
Here's where I'm going to disagree. He said what does he say about the overcoaching? He feels it leads a tendency to overcoach then?
Yeah, they're clouding their head with what just happened instead of trying to take care of business during the next shift.
Okay. So standing back and looking at it, what has John Tortorella done in the last 10 years? Versus what has John Cooper done in the last 10 years. So if it's here's what I'm trying to say. If he feels that it leads him to overcoaching, that's fine. If that's how he wants to phrase it. But to say it across the board and speaking for everybody else, because the Lightning you do. And I think I was trying to think of Palat was another one when he was with the Lightning. Tyler Johnson was an iPadder. But yeah, Kucherov, and I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that really stands out to me that really does. But I think, Braden Point definitely for sure, 100% is always looking to see what's going on. I think it's okay if you want to say, I feel like it leads me to overcoach a bit, which is fine. But I don't think he should put it across like a blanket statement like that, because clearly it does benefit the Lightning's.
Yeah,
it does. Or John Cooper wouldn't allow it. So I'm not trying to be like a big, huge John Cooper defender with the iPad, but I think it's one of those things. Like if you want to say it makes you feel like you're overcoaching, that's fine. But it's a ridiculous thing to say when he really hasn't had a lot of success outside of 2 or 3 seasons.
Well, and here's the thing.
His whole career.
I will say coaches know their teams the best. No team is the same as far as personnel, players on the ice. There may be rules for the players in Tampa Bay on how their iPad consumption is supposed to be, during a game. But, I do this too. I may be in a meeting and I get a text message or an email buzz goes off or something on my phone goes off. I open the email, I start to scroll through and I'm not paying attention to what's happening. So I get that. These pieces of technology, which are amazing, can also be distracting. And it's just something I think he wants players to be more engaged between the shifts. So there could be rules on teams that, restrict the iPad consumption during a game and we just don't know about it.
Right. True.
So I see both things on here. Maybe, he's like he said, there is a TV in every bench that if there's something we need to look at, we can. So I see, and like I said, no team is the same.
Mhm.
So he clearly knows his players. Some of the players on his team agree with him, and don't see a real problem with it. But it just it was the big story, I feel like, out of the NHL last week. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it because we've seen them all, all the Lightning players, sometimes come
Yeah.
off the ice and look at something. But
Yeah.
again, we don't know what the rules are on the team. And, of course, him saying he doesn't really give a flying shiitake mushrooms, which I could curse on this podcast. Nobody cares, but I don't know. I just, class it up a little bit. He's always entertaining and the Philadelphia media market takes it and runs with it. So
Oh, of course.
next time you see a player on any team pick up an iPad, think about, is it being
Flying
distracting?
shiitake mushrooms.
Right. Is it distracting? What is the player getting out of it? Wondering if maybe there are rules on the bench for how often they can take a look at it. But these are also professional athletes.
Yeah.
He also is working with a younger team. I feel like they feel like he's got a lot of young players too. So there could be that. So something to keep an eye on as the season continues. But I thought it was interesting because
Yeah.
look, I'm not a parent. You're a parent. Do you find these pieces of technology that are in our hands? Do you find your kids distracted by them? And I think your answer would probably be yes.
Yeah, they are. But I have seen, 2 or 3 gathered around the iPad, getting off a shift, and they gather around, and then something happens and they all
Look up. Yeah.
look up to see what's going on. So I
Yeah.
think maybe it's one of those things where, yeah, it could be age, it could be maturity, it could be that John Cooper just trusts these guys because he's known them a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe not, Hale and Nick and those guys, but maybe it's a trust issue. Maybe it's just you're grown men. Why am I policing your, if you want to look at what happened, look at what happened.
Look, as long as
Um,
they're not watching like Monday Night Football while they're supposed to be playing,
right.
maybe it's fine. But
Yeah.
again, an interesting thing to think about as you see your team play. Anything you want to jump on before we go this week, Dory?
No, I think I covered everything. A lot of tough games coming up. I know Florida's fallen backwards a little bit. But they're always recently been a hard competitor for the Lightning, and that's coming up beginning of February.
Yes.
Beginning of February.
Also closing at midnight tonight is the All-Star voting. Nikita Kucherov is already in, but if you want to make a case and vote for, players like Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Mikhail Sergachev, Steven Stamkos, you can go to Andre Vasilevsky. You can go to TampaBayLightning.com and find the link to vote there. It closes at midnight tonight on the 17th of January. Yes.
Now that you mentioned Steve Stamkos, Mr. 499. So
Yes.
we're in the hunt for Steve Stamkos to catch goal 500 for his
Yes.
career. I would
he was
love it if he did it
trying
against
so
Boston.
hard the night he got 499 and they were trying to feed him the puck as much as they could. And I think that's partly because he did it during the Vancouver game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so I think that's partly why I think it was Vancouver.
I think it was Vancouver.
Because then I was like, oh no, they're on the road for the next like 4 or 5 games. And I think that's partly why maybe there were some, the door was open a little bit to Vancouver to come back a little bit. But yeah, we're on the hunt for 500. I hope he does it back at home.
I hope it's against Boston.
That would be amazing. But I hope it's back at home. He's gotten a couple assists in the last couple games, and I've noticed his dad has been his dad's basically in the stands for every game at home. But I wonder if he's traveling, to maybe witness it in person. But let's just, Steven, get a couple assists, but just wait to put the puck in the net from your stick, until you get home. Do it at home for the fans and your dad. All right. Yes. So Mr. 499 waiting on 500, Steven Stamkos. Dory, thank you so much. We will catch you next week. Don't forget to leave us a follow so you never miss an episode. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review, and we will catch you next time.